Hey friends, I'm Irina. I love talking to Ruby founders. And today I'm joined by Nick, the founder of Uscreen and my old friend. I'm sure many of you know Nick, but yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about Uscreen, and guys have some amazing news that I actually been sharing at Ruby conferences for a bit. And then we're going to talk about Nick's Ruby story and guidance for the Ruby community. So this is something I'm super excited about. I really want to talk more about Uscreen today, and it's crazy important to hear real success stories on Ruby today. And this is why I really want you to tell us a bit more about Uscreen. And there was something that clearly caught my attention when, I think it was in February, there was an announcement that Uscreen raised $150 million from a private equity firm, I think, right?
Yep.
So tell us about this.
Sure. So first of all, a little bit of a background story. If you ever spoke with me before February, you would know that I would usually be on the stance of like, hey, we're bootstrapped, we'll like it. We probably will never raise. And then in February, boom, we have $150 million round. Yeah. So first of all, I never say never. And B, I think the moment you find the right partner, things could work. I think we were in a position where we did not plan to raise. We just met the right partner, had the multiple conversation, and just decided to go with it, which is exciting for us personally, for the company, and hopefully for the whole creator economy and for people who are building memberships. And if you think about this, we were bootstrapped for 10 years. And when we started, I joined PJ, who had the prototype built, by the way, also in Ruby. The first prototype was built by a consulting company from Poland. And they did a nice job, but PJ did not have any experience like working with engineers before. So it was also his first experience building something like the classic story from every taxi in San Francisco, where somebody telling you that, hey, I will just go pay to developers and they will build my idea and it would be a multi-million-dollar project.
Right.
So the classic story, the same way for PJ. He was in IT already. He had the webnet hosting company that were doing hostings for usually ecom. It's pre-Shopify. It's like, to understand, Shopify and SaaS pretty much did not exist at the moment. So they would install Miva on the servers in Virginia. And then Shopify appeared. And he was like, okay, my business is done. Basically, who will buy licenses for Miva now? Because like you can just hit 2 buttons, hit sign up, and you have your Shopify store. He started to think what he can do next. And he had one of the customers who came to him and asked if he can help him to set up the video streaming. He was like, probably yes, why not? And then he understood the cost and the opportunities there. And he's like, okay, I want to do videos. That's how it started, basically. So, and since then, the business went through multiple iterations. We changed the direction from serving different clients and customers. And we started as a Shopify plugin on Shopify App Store. Not a lot of people know that.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, we had the Shopify app early on. And initially, I remember a lot of customers would sell DVDs and the digital version with those DVDs through Shopify. And the Uscreen would power the digital version of it. So people would send us DVD boxes in the offices because they could not understand how to get from DVD to MP4, basically. Since the day one, we basically were Ruby shop. We had a Ruby on Rails application, and our current code base is literally 8 or 9 years old code base. We still have the monorepo, the large Rails application. And our first version of mobile apps were also built in Rails, which was fantastic for us back then because it allowed us to test it super fast. Even though it was like not a lot of tutorials on turbolinks, a lot of stuff we would try to figure out ourselves. Yeah, we're like, hey, it's working for Basecamp somehow. Like it should work for our test version. And we had the Rails application in app stores for 2 years. Not a lot of people know, but it was a moment where it was like 800 different mobile apps that were written in Rails in the App Store in a specific moment of time because of us.
Right.
Then we transitioned from Rails on turbolinks, but without it, I would say we would spend a lot more money and a lot more time, because back then I was 100% on Rails and I would not know anything else. So the prototyping would be a nightmare. Yeah, that's how we started. That's how we went to where we are today. And today we have a bunch of cool creators using our platforms, building their memberships. We so far built almost $1 billion for creators, like generated in the past 10 years. So we're ramping up slowly, as every bootstrap company would do, but we're here.
Yep. Yes, it's incredible. So just for everybody who's watching this to understand what Uscreen is doing, I originally thought Uscreen is focusing on the smart TV apps. Is this really the focus, the smart TV, or how would you?
TVs is actually probably 10% of our focus. 90% of the focus is the web and mobile. Those are primetime platforms for a lot of our content. And one of our best ICPs today is fitness and health and wellness content creators.
Yep.
That's probably more than 1/3 of every use cases on the platform. I would say that they are the most business savvy people on the platform. Like, if you look in the creator economy, fitness creators are usually the most business savvy people. And the fitness people are thinking through the business lens in a lot of cases, which is kind of like interesting concept when you look in the creator economy, because creator economy is actually so huge. A lot of people, whenever you're saying creator economy, thinking about YouTube, I don't know, Patreon, Spotify, and that's it, or Twitch. That's usually general perception of creator economy for a lot of people. Honestly, creator economy is way more than that. And we help stream to TV and mobile apps, so creators would launch their own mobile and TV apps. It's part of the distribution, but yeah, we're focusing mostly to help them to amplify their content and build the memberships. Yeah.
What about you? Can you tell us your Ruby story, your personal Ruby story? How did you get started?
When I was in high school, I started to make money by doing websites to people. And it was like classic, like WordPress setup, so some PHP stuff. I did my first like school website when I was in 6th grade or something like that. So like, I really like it. In reality, I really like the design and marketing component of everything. I hated coding part. So when I get into university, I got my first job. First year of my university, I got my first job, and it was programming, but it was close to design parts. It was automation for a newspaper, where we built an automation for ads and stuff with the local Ruby on Rails app, local first. So we had like a server in the office and a small Ruby on Rails app that like help us to get the final design in InDesign. And it was like creation of XML specs for that. It was crazy. But when I started working, I figured out that, oh, I actually can make money by doing programming. And I ditched my university after 6 months in. And I was like, I will learn Ruby now. That's my goal, because the application that we ordered back then for that local newspaper thing, I was more or less administrator of it and just project manager. And it was a guy from St. Petersburg who then moved to Thailand, and he was doing the app. And I was like, hey, can you teach me? And he's like, sure. So I get all my savings, spend all my money like learning Ruby and Rails with him. And I started to develop features in the organization. And I switched from being an administrator to like being an actual developer there. And that was my first job. And then I switched to work with another really fun company from Germany that were handling tours and tour guides for Europe. The company no longer exists, but the one cool thing about that company is the team. It was the most amazing team. And I was like, it was jaw dropping. Like, I learned a lot of stuff there. And from there, we basically started Uscreen. In 10 years now, I'm doing Uscreen still.
Crazy. Wow. So Uscreen essentially was your first startup, right? Your first
Yes.
entrepreneurship experience.
If I count every idea that I coded on the weekends, launch and fail, it would probably not be the first one, but it's the first one that's known by people.
Let's say this. Let's look at those 10 years and say, what do you say worked great from the perspective of using Ruby, using Rails, the Ruby on Rails ecosystem community? Kind of like, what do you think helped you build out Uscreen, iterate? And like you said, you were bootstrapped, which is an interesting factor.
Yeah. To understand, as a bootstrap company, you're trying to be profitable from day one, which is impossible, but as soon as possible. With that, your goal is to optimize the R&D department to be able to deliver results with the limited amount of people, right? And back then, I don't remember any other frameworks that were like popular that allow you to build full stack. Personally, we're always thinking that I like both backend and frontend, so do everybody else should. So I was forcing people to be full stacks. It was interesting, like to build up the hiring process to make sure we can get folks who are aligned with our goals there. And we took pretty opinionated approach in the building Rails application, where we were saying, hey, we will keep it as close to Rails starter pack as possible. We would try to simplify things, try to simplify places where you keep the logic, how you're writing tests, how you creating the front end, because we were running like pre-React, we were running for a while with just stimulus. Most pieces of our admin area is written in stimulus controllers, and that's it. And it's an approach where it's less like appealing to a lot of developers who like, oh, there's React, this, that, chat CN, boom, boom. And you're like, oh, there's the whole world out there. And you guys so boring, you're using stimulus. Why? The purpose is like, we're trying to keep things as simple as possible while it's possible. And I think until you reach like 40, 50 devs, it's pretty possible to keep stuff really lean and simple before you go and start to make it more complex, because now you also have a huge communication layer internally, right? That's need to be happening. And that's where like complexity start to be like a requirement, because it's actually helping rather than not. And while you're small, you need to move fast. All of the complexity is kind of not needed. Like, I'm always trying to think about this as a physical world business. Like, if you open moms and pops coffee shop, like, you would not build a huge HR system in it. You would not hire 65 lawyers, and because you don't need that. The same in software. Like, until you need specific things, until it's must for the business, you should not do it. And technology is not something unique. Technology should follow the classic business rules. And this is where Rails is the awesome framework. Yes, it does not have everything. Yes, it might be not fit like for a high load application, which I'm still like, I still think I don't know what is high load application, because so far Rails was great for us. I always thinking like, yeah, we're probably not high load, but I feel that you can do it with Rails. Yeah, some things maybe will require a little bit more resources or compute. Some things you will need to go and later optimize and spend time on it. But it's fine. That's how business rolling. Like, you solving the most important problem at the moment, and you trying to prioritize real problem versus million other problems, right? Like, if you're looking in your business, you have 10 problems, and the good CEO would avoid 8 and just pick 2 and focus on them. The bad CEO would try to solve all 10. The same thing with engineering. I feel like, yeah, it's nice to have the most perfect unicorn application out there, but it should serve the purpose, and the purpose usually is some need of a client that you're trying to solve. And if you're solving it efficiently, no one cares what is in the background there, right?
True.
As long as it's working, as long as it's efficient, and as long as team can deliver result fast enough. And so far, in my experience, Rails is that. And on mobile side, Flutter is that for us as well.
What do you think we could do better? What do you want more of? What do you want maybe people to do that would help your business?
What I feel is missing still is the good front end setup. Like, because I feel like Rails is opinionated, and it's nice to have like the official view. An official view is, hey, let's build the base camp. Yeah, there's companies like Shopify who are doing a lot for front end, and there's like multiple other companies like your own companies who are working on the front end setup and helping to integrate Inertia.js, for example, which is awesome. We used it before, but we used it so early, it was like a little bit not stable back then.
Yes.
What I don't like about JavaScript communities is there's no opinionated way for masses. Everybody like build their own sandcastles, and every project is unique. What I loved about Rails that the cost of onboarding new engineer is so low because most of the stuff are standard. You don't need to think how email is implemented in the code base because you probably already know. And I don't think we have this with the front end because, again, partially because the JavaScript world is so diverse and so different and it's like so fast. That may be it. I know that React becoming de facto like a standard for a lot of stuff, right? But I still wish it's probably not a complaint about Rails. It's like more or less about engineering and like how we as the engineers still feel like we're focusing on a lot of like technology stack problems rather than user problems in some cases. And we like reinventing the wheel every time here and there and improving half a second or like milliseconds sometimes. And another thing, what is good about JavaScript, particularly because of that, is JavaScript is way more ready for AI because a bunch of open sources there. A lot more developers are in ecosystem. And I think particularly because Ruby is used hardcore in Rails, and most of Rails applications are not open sourced by design, right? The training for AI is harder. And I think like in my day-to-day operation, I'm trying to help my engineers to use AI efficiently. And right now there are a lot of use cases with the front end and a lot less use cases with the back end. And I'm like, I feel like AI is a force multiplier, and it's something that could help you to automate or speed up boring work so you can focus on the fun part. I think with Rails, it's a little bit harder to do those things versus with the front end with JavaScript and with a few other things out there.
Do you mean in particular something like, code completions or something larger?
I think both. Code completion as well. I think in like Golang and TypeScript, it would be more precise. It will come up with better ideas or like more accurate ideas. AI will hallucinate no matter what, right? You as a human operator is there, but I always think about this as this. I feel like Ruby itself as a language is so like human friendly that it's hard for a machine. And there's other languages that's much easier to understand for a machine or much closer to machine language, and it's much easier for AI to understand it. That's my personal opinion.
From the perspective of integrating your application with certain AI services or patterns, like MCPs, tools, agents. Sorry for buzzwords, but it's hard to avoid them. But from that perspective, what do you want, for Rails to have, for the Rails ecosystem to have, specifically for Uscreen? Is there something you feel you'd want?
In general, the good abstraction for Rails is the moderation layer. Considering that the classic Rails tutorial is building Twitter under 15 minutes, AI use case with moderation is awesome there. Like
Yeah,
that's where we right now helping content creators. What we're building right now is the moderation layer.
makes sense.
It feels like something classic that can fit in a lot of different apps.
So, what do you feel is we could do with AI? And do you see it as a kind of standard thing for like one kind of algorithm for everybody, or
It's really hard to say if it should be like the one thing like
Mhm.
any other framework, right? We have. It feels like it's something that could be potentially standardized because I think people are trying to avoid the same behaviors. And if it's like extendable enough where you can, for example, if you have, I don't know, kids content, you probably will want to be like a little bit more on point with this, even like minor
Mhm.
potential problems there
Mhm.
versus where it's like chat or engineers, you
Right.
probably can let some things slide there with no
Mhm.
issue or have it like be community moderated as a second layer. Another thing is search. I feel like in Rails, like every time when I needed to build the Rails app until 3 years ago, the first thing I would do is implement like some search mechanism,
Mhm.
right?
By the way, is there something coming up for search, right?
I think so.
In
Yeah. And I think
yeah.
like this is where AI could be
Mhm.
also a good place, especially with a lot of SQLite experimentation lately. You can do a lot, and you can enhance the search by a lot as well. There is no standardized practices for that, and like those two things are stuff that we're exploring in Uscreen actively outside of like automatic caption for videos, which is like probably more or
Mhm.
less content platform use cases and understanding the video's narrative, sentiment, and other stuff, which probably not like super common for every Rails app. But the work with text, right, is probably like will be helpful in 90% of applications. Search will be helpful in 90% of application, maybe more. The moderation probably a little bit less, but still could be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, I agree. There, of course, there are services, right, for that solve all of those problems. The question is, right, first of all, do you want to use third-party service, every time you're using a search kind of query? And then the pricing models, right, and also where you send the data, and finally, I think we just want a very clear integration into Rails, right?
Correct. The
Um,
same thing I was always thinking about Sidekick. I'm like, why
mhm,
it's not a standard part of Rails for a long time? We're paying for Sidekick enterprise license. Like Sidekick is awesome. But I was always thinking, like, that's literally every time I'm starting a Rails app, the first thing in gems I'm installing is Sidekick. Why it's not a part of Rails? Like, why? So like that's kind of like it's getting towards like a similar thing. Especially we'll get more over time once we will have like more simpler AI use cases. And the API is getting so good everywhere, right? Where
mhm.
it's not a rocket science anymore on how to integrate it in your application stack. Sometimes you don't even need an API, right? You can spin up your own models. I feel those would be good ideas to explore for people. And as you're
Mhm.
saying, like there are already projects and products that's solving it and charging money for it. Like Algolia probably have the best integration for Rails out there, and a few other startups for sure, where it's working great for Shopify. They Andrew Wilkinson calls the strategy barnacle on the whale, where you're like finding an awesome idea for Shopify that you can sell to a million merchants and then growing out of Shopify. Like we know a bunch of apps that did that. Like
Yeah,
Algolia is one of them. Oh,
yeah.
do an awesome search for ecom and then start to do search for help guides, then start to get search for business applications. The same for a bunch of email marketing software pieces. Like in a lot of cases some people like trying to not innovate but instead they're trying to defend the stand of like why you need to pay, and I think
Yeah.
that's not always the right thing to do. Good example is any cable, right? You guys have like the open source version that you can use, and if you need an extra you can buy it, and that's like you paying for innovation, you paying for extra attention and extra feature. The same for Sidekick Enterprise, the same flow. And it's working really well. And I think here in those concepts, it might work as well.
So can our listeners connect with you? Do you want people to connect with you somehow? And I don't know, maybe propose some ideas and talk to you?
Look,
what would be the best way?
I honestly never closing down my LinkedIn and Twitter DMs are open. Yeah, LinkedIn, I might not answer if the speech would be, hey, we have an awesome QA services. Do you want to use us?
Yep.
But I'm free to collaborate. I usually answering to people. They're running away from me because I'm annoying them afterwards. No, I'm joking. But I'm free to collaborate in DMs,
I can
Twitter,
attest to
and
that,
LinkedIn.
for sure.
So DMs on Twitter is the best. They're open, and if they close, just mention me and say, hey, you said it's open and it's closed. I will open them back. I'm pretty much sure they are open. And LinkedIn, even if it's boring, it's still working pretty well.
Yep. Okay, we'll add a link to that to our comments when we publish. And yeah, by the way, are you gonna attend any events this year? What's your plan?
I did not plan yet because we're right now like building the whole new strategy, and it's like exciting time to be like, we're pretty busy. We're also building our own mini events for creators. Like actually today we have one in New York. Later on we will have one in Dubai. Then we will have one in Austin. We had one in LA. It's fun. We're working on that. I want to visit a few business conferences. Sounds boring, but it's not.
Which ones? I'm interested.
I think in May it would be a conference called OOO, right? It's a fun one. I've been there last year. Really small conference with a lot of people, with a lot of ideas, a lot of builders actually. So good place to be in, good place to get connected with people, collaborate and build something together. And because I'm on the East Coast, so I'm usually picking something on the East Coast to not travel for too long. Even though I really like to travel to California, it's taken a lot of time. It's also taken a lot of time from your business because we also have a lot of people in Europe, like in Portugal and Spain. And when you're traveling in California, your time zone is suboptimal. I would say it this way.
Yeah, waking up super early and starting the calls at 6 a.m.
I'm waking up at 6 a.m., but I have a lot of chores before my workday. I'm the one responsible for packing the lunchbox and getting my daughter to school. So
that's pretty cool.
It's my daily chore, and I would not want to exchange it to any business call, even though I like my business, but I like my daughter a lot more. So
naturally. But yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And I really appreciated what you shared about building the business, focusing on the business, and Rails helping you with that and not distracting you too much from the business. So I really love that. Thanks so much for sharing the ideas for the community. And please share some stuff about your journey on your socials and maybe blog posts from Uscreen. That'd be great. So thank you. And I really
thank you for your time as well.